Please allow me to introduce our speaker today, Jimmy from the Young at Heart group.
Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi.
Jimmy.
Hello, everyone. So go ahead, Carrie.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Carrie, for asking me to come and participate in your meeting today and to share with you. Always an honor and a privilege to get to serve AA in any capacity. It's the reason why I believe I'm alive and here today is because of AA. So I was asked to share a bit about the first step. So I went into our big book, and there's a section in here. Of course, you hear a lot of folks say how much they love certain parts of the book, and I love all of it. But certainly this portion of step one really speaks to me, and I identify with it quite a bit. Lots of you who are students of the big book, like myself, are very familiar with the hammer and the hot stove. So I'll spend about 3 minutes reading this, and then I'll get right into how my experience relates to this. So starting on page 22, if hundreds of experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle with all its attendant suffering and humiliation, why is it that he takes that one drink? Why can't he stay on the water wagon? What has become of the common sense and willpower that he still sometimes displays with respect to other matters? Perhaps there never will be a full answer to these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reacts differently from normal people. We're not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. We cannot answer the riddle. We know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, he reacts much like other men. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol whatever into his system, something happens, both in the bodily and mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. The experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations would be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem of the alcoholic centers in his mind rather than in his body. If you ask him why he started on that last bender, the chances are he will offer you any one of 100 alibis. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of the man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. Once in a while, he may tell the truth, and the truth, strange to say, is usually that he has no more idea why he took that first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts they really do not know why they do it. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect they are down for the count. How true this is, few realize. In a vague way, their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal, but everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his power of will. The tragic truth is that if the man be a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control. At a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, he passes into a state where the most powerful desire to stop drinking is of absolutely no avail. This tragic situation has already arrived in practically every case long before it is suspected. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice in drink. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent. We are unable, at certain times, to bring into our consciousness with sufficient force the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We are without defense against the first drink. The almost certain consequences that follow taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to deter us. If these thoughts occur, they are hazy and readily supplanted with the old threadbare idea that this time we shall handle ourselves like other people. There's a complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. And that sums it up in a nutshell for me. That characterizes very accurately my experience with drinking. my first drunk, if you will. I was 16 years old. I was an exchange student in Japan, and the locals took us to a bar. They called it the Disco in downtown Nagoya. And I walk in there, and they hand us these tickets, and turns out they were free drink tickets as a gift for us as guests. And the first thing the Japanese people say is, "Gaijin, where are you from?" And I told them I'm from Tennessee, and they said, "Oh, Jack Daniels." So halfway around the world, and these folks they knew something about Tennessee whiskey, and so the night started. You know, I left there, somehow made it to the train. The host family had given me a bicycle to ride while I was there. I'm on my way, drunker than a bicycle, on a bicycle, trying to make my way home. I get hit by a car, and probably fortunate that I was intoxicated, or I may have been really hurt. Which, by the way, is a story for another time. Any further than that, for some amends. But you know, that was where it started, and I wake up the next morning with a terrific hangover. You know, I'd lost control of my bodily functions in the middle of the night. And this is the first time I've ever really drank alcohol to inebriation. And my thought when I woke up the next morning was, man, I got to try that again. I felt horrible physically, but somewhere inside me, when that alcohol got a hold of me, it changed me. It changed the thing inside of me that made me feel apart from, different from everybody else. The insecurity, the inadequacy, all of that stuff just vanished with that experience. So fast forward, I come home, and I'm home, and what happens in Japan stays in Japan, because I got an image to uphold around here. And you know, I respect AA, singleness of purpose, very much so. A true student of our co-founder Bill's writings, especially a favorite of mine is Problems Other Than Alcohol. But it bears mentioning here that my first experience with another substance was right before I was to go for a DOD medical exam for an appointment to West Point. And that was my very first experience. And I lost an appointment to West Point because of that. So everybody in my school, everybody in my family, everybody was so terribly disappointed, but my newfound friends were showing me love, and they said, "Jimmy, come hang with us." So that's what I did. I went with them, and that started my career at 17 years old of really going down the path of cultivating my alcoholism. And in the doctor's opinion, Dr. Silkworth mentions first in the book about the phenomenon of craving. And I distinctly remember an image in my mind where I'm sitting at a bar, and I've told the bartender and the other people in the bar that I'm only going to, this is my last one. All right. This is my last one. And about halfway through my last one, this thing hits me, and I can only describe it as being thirsty. I get thirsty. And I know in that moment I'm going to have another. I didn't know at that time that that's what that was. That was that phenomenon of craving that happened in me. And my drinking career from there forward it was always, I drink alcohol and I get thirsty. I can't control how much I drink. And it happened almost every single time I put alcohol into my body. And, you know, I get to a place where, you know, my problems are starting to pile up. And they're becoming, as our book suggests, astonishingly difficult to solve. I'm in a place where I'm getting locked up. It seems like every other time I drink alcohol, I break out in handcuffs, and I find myself waking up around Chattanooga. We affectionately call 601 Walnut Street the Rock. You woke up on the Rock this morning, did you? And I got to spend a lot of nights down there, and I wasn't raised that way, you know. And yet I find myself once again in this place, you know, and going to jail isn't what made me an alcoholic. The thing that makes me an alcoholic, we just read, it's twofold, really. The first one is when I drink alcohol, it gets in me and I get thirsty and I can't stop. I like, you know, every now and then I'll drink a Coca-Cola, I like sweet tea, love coffee, water, but I don't get thirsty when I drink those things the way I get thirsty when I drink alcohol. And then consequences happen, and all those consequences pile up, And it, you know, all of the evidence suggests that it's not a good idea, Jimmy. You should probably not drink. And at first it starts with, well, I'll just control and moderate my drinking, right? I'm gonna attempt to control and enjoy my drinking at the same time. And so I endeavor to do that and fail miserably because I can't seem to put the two together at the same time. I can the few times I'm able to control my drinking, I'm just not enjoying myself the way everybody else seems to be enjoying themselves because I have to try really, really hard to control anything that I'm doing. And on the flip side of that, if I'm enjoying myself, which I most often did, I was certainly not in control, if you will, because that's the furthest thing from my mind. I was quite busy enjoying myself. And once again, you know, when I drink, I get thirsty, and I can't control how much I drink. So over time, the pattern develops, and it's very, very apparent that when Jimmy drinks, bad stuff happens. And yet, as we read on page 23, the main problem centers in his mind rather than in his body. So my problem isn't necessarily that I drink. The evidence shows that when I drink, I can't control how much I drink. But what is it in me? The strange insanity, right? What is it that makes me think I can drink when all of the evidence says no, you can't do that successfully? And that's where the mental obsession comes in. And it took getting to Alcoholics Anonymous and taking the steps with a sponsor out of our big book to wake up to the fact that that's what was going on with me. This physical allergy, coupled with the mental obsession, manifested itself in this spiritual malady that was my existence in the form of alcoholism. And it wasn't until I got here to AA and you all showed me our basic text and you walked me through that book, and I found myself. I found myself in there. In 1939, the book was first released, the first printing of the first edition in April of 1939, and they knew me back then. So that's my experience with the first step in a nutshell. Once I start drinking, I can't stop. And knowing that, and knowing all the misery and suffering and humiliation and pain and harm that I cause to myself, other people, the people that I love the most in this world, that want nothing more than for me to be successful and to be healthy and to be happy and to live life to the fullest. They so desperately want these things for me, and I want them for myself too, but I just can't seem to figure it out. I can't solve the riddle. Why can't I figure it out? Why can these people go out and drink normally and I can't? What's wrong with me? And today, as a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, I can tell you that being an alcoholic, more importantly, being a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous, being a student of our basic text and our literature, having been shown the way in our traditions and concepts and how to be of service in Alcoholics Anonymous and to my fellow man, being an alcoholic is the greatest asset that I have today. Because through Alcoholics Anonymous, my life has been transformed. And I've had the great good fortune of meeting many, many, many wonderful people who are miracles in their own right, whose lives have been transformed because of this simple program that we have. So I'll stop right there. Carrie, thanks again for inviting me to come and share with you. Always love any opportunity to dig into our basic text. So thank you very, very much.